Think about the last time when you looked for a job, or maybe somebody who is looking for work right now. How is that going for them? If they are like many people, it's pretty challenging today. You know why? Because in the last 10 years, job search has changed dramatically, and we have never been taught the right way to look for work. Well, that's what this video is all about. My name is Sanjeev Reddy, and I'm here to help you learn how to attract recruiters and make your job search easier. In this video, I wanted to show you what you can do to attract recruiters. Wouldn't that be nice? Instead of you spending hours online applying and waiting to hear back, instead they could be contacting you. First of all, I'm gonna show you a day in the life of a recruiter and help you leverage that information to your advantage. I'm also gonna show you how to improve upon your LinkedIn profile, your resume, and I'm even gonna show you how to connect with recruiters after the interview so that you can make a great impression. The truth is, job searches changes so much that we really need this information so that you can work smarter, not harder. There is a lot to cover and I wanted to get started right away. So let's get this thing going and let's learn how to attract recruiters that you want and deserve. Before we move further, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. One of the biggest complaints of current job seekers is about recruiters. And a recruiter's job is not that easy. If you walk through their day, you will have a little bit more compassion for recruiters and what they are going through. I wanted to take you through a typical day of a recruiter so that you can understand. They have got a lot going on. And if you can understand that, guess what? You can market to it. You can work with it. So let me bring you inside and show you what I'm talking about. Recruiters get on average over 200 applications for one job posting. And let me tell you how quickly they get an application. Within 200 seconds and all of a sudden the floodgates open. With so many applications to go through, recruiters typically spend only about 6 seconds on each one, deciding whether or not to read it in full. If they wanted to read every application in detail, they would not be able to complete their job on time. Additionally, recruiters are in a tough spot because they can only reject the candidates who don't meet the requirements, but they can't make the final hiring decision. Recruiters' job performance is evaluated based on whether they can identify all the candidates who meet all of the job's requirements. Out of those 200 applicants, did you know that more than 50% of them don't fit that job? Every time you apply to a job where you don't meet the requirements, you are being removed. That brings us down to 100 candidates. And then guess what happens? That is still too many for a recruiter to physically go through. So they have to use something called keyword searching within their applicant tracking system. And this is where they look for the most important skill sets and keywords that they were told to look for in order to meet requirements that they were given. And out of that, 80% of the applicants are removed. Now we are down to 20. From those 20, the recruiter still has to go through the application and try to find somebody that fits on personality, aptitude and experience. All from one application. By the time they are done, they are down to around 4 to 6 candidates. And they deliver those to the hiring manager. So you can see why the chances are pretty slim that you are going to get pulled from the pile and handed to a hiring manager. Now we are going to show you how to improve upon that. That's what this video is going to be all about. But in the meantime, I want you to think seriously about how hard the recruiter's job is and how you can feel more compassion for that recruiter as a part of your strategy. It's like they are going through a huge haystack looking for a needle with the hiring manager over their shoulder but not offering any help. That is a day in the life of a recruiter. It is exhausting, it is stressful, and on some days it feels pretty unrewarding. If you can keep that in your mind as you build your strategy, you can really attract the right recruiters. And now I am going to show you how. So recruiters have a pretty tough time. They are getting flooded with the applications. They are overwhelmed, and the traditional process of posting a job is just really ineffective for them. So most recruiters today have adopted a thing called a proactive candidate search. This is where they go out and create a list of candidates that meet their needs. That is why all of them are now on LinkedIn. Because they are able to do that on LinkedIn. They pay for a premium service that allows them to customize searches. So how do they do that? Well, it is something called keywords. They take those skill sets, those ones that you put in your endorsement section on your LinkedIn profile, and they use those skill sets plus some other things like geography and technologies, and they put them into the LinkedIn search. And there comes a beautiful list of candidates that meet their qualifications. You can see why this would be much more effective way for a recruiter to find the right talent. You can also see why optimizing your profile and using the right keywords can statistically increase the chances that you will get in a recruiter's list. And that's the real secret. Because if you know how to optimize your profile, you can show up in the list. We can optimize it further and help you move up in the list and be even stronger match for those recruiters. And the result is you being contacted by a recruiter about an opportunity you probably wouldn't have known about otherwise, which is pretty exciting. In essence, you are building a thing called inbound marketing strategy. Instead of you going out and knock on the doors and put in lot of time and efforts into the applications, which results into nothing and hearing nothing and feeling frustrated, and all of a sudden you are building a tool online on LinkedIn that is making those wonderful companies that you always wanted to work for come to you. And that's really the secret, because we want the recruiters to find you, and this is how we are going to do it. Your LinkedIn profile is probably the most important tool you can use to attract recruiters today. That's because recruiters are on there searching for you proactively. So if you have the right profile optimized with right keywords, you are going to show up in more searches. Now I am going to take you top to bottom through your LinkedIn profile and show you exactly what you can do in each section to optimize it. And we are going to start at the top. Because you know what? The top fold is the single most important part of your LinkedIn profile. That is where the recruiter is going to spend 6 seconds taking a look and seeing if you are somebody that they wanted to read more about. So there are 3 things in your top fold that are pretty important. The first thing is your photograph. And here is the good news. It doesn't have to be professionally done. You just need good lighting and neutral backdrop, but the single most important thing you need in that picture is to be approachable. You need to look like somebody that the recruiter would want to reach out to and the recruiter would want to work with and wanted to present it to the hiring manager. So don't be serious, have a smile on your face, be yourself, be approachable. Now your headline. This is a piece of prime real estate. I cannot stress that enough, and let me explain why. When recruiters are searching for you inside that platform, they are putting in keywords. The system is very much like the internet. It is going through and looking at everyone's profiles and determining who has those keywords, how many times they have those keywords, and whether or not those keywords are in the headline. And guess what happens if you have those keywords in the headline? You improve the chances of moving up in the search results of that recruiter. What kind of jobs are you looking for? What are the typical skill sets that everyone is looking for when it comes to your particular expertise? You can find those usually in the endorsement section at the bottom of your LinkedIn profile. You wanted to find the top 5 or 6 skill sets that you most wanted to leverage in your next career. The ones that you know are in demand and that provide a lot of value, and you wanted to put them in your headline with a vertical line divider. That way, When a recruiter land on your profile and they see that smiling, engaging headshot and that headline, and they can quickly go check your profile. Hey, this person has all the skill set that we are looking for. They are going to click and check out. They are also going to learn a lot more about you, and that's what we are trying to make happen here. Now moving on to your summary. Summary, by definition, means short. What they don't want to see is an epic long novel. As a recruiter, they don't have time for that. They are not going to read it. You should be able to explain to that recruiter in just a few sentences what value you bring. Roll up your experience and explain it to them. Give them the numbers, the facts, and the figures that really validate who you are, and entice them to keep reading. So keep that summary short and engaging. Keep those keywords in mind as well, right? We wanted to think about something called density. It is probably a good point right now to explain the idea of keyword density to you. The concept of a keyword showing up multiple times throughout your profile, and the more you have them, the much better it gets. If you have got them in the headline, if you have got them in the summary, you are creating density. And we wanted to do that throughout your entire profile. Now let's move on to your work history. It is very important that your work history and your resume mimic each other. Make sure that these always are the same, because recruiters are going to look at both documents, and if they see any discrepancies, they could get confused. You wanted to keep your titles accurate, and at all costs, whenever you can, make sure that the company that you worked for, you are actually pulling that company in and getting the actual company logo next to your name in your work history. Why is that? Because recruiters are able to roll their mouse over that company and learn everything they need to know about that organization, which means you don't have to explain that in the work history. You can keep your bullet points about what you accomplished, and that's really important. And I need you to understand that. Recruiters need you to be objective. They need you to give them just the facts. They need to be able to read through and see what you have done. So think about the numbers, the stats, the percentages, the goals that you reached. Those are the things that should be in your work history. Keep it clean and always tie it back to those key skill sets. Let us say, for example, if you are amazing in project management, how many projects have you managed? What size were those projects? How many people worked on those projects? Those are the kinds of things that as recruiters, they wanted to know about you. We are going to get into all those additional grade sections that LinkedIn has available to you, like education, certifications, licenses, publications, honors and awards, volunteering. Should you fill these out? Of course you should. But don't go crazy. Stick to the facts. Think about your keywords. And show the recruiters how you can continue to tie your value, so that the recruiter is continuing to read down and seeing continuity and consistency in who you are as a professional. So moving down to the profile, let's talk about the endorsement section, which actually happens to be one of my favorite section. This is where you are able to emphasize the skill sets that you most wanted to be known for, the skills that you wanted to be found on by recruiters. The first thing you should do is think about 10 skill sets that are most important to you in your profession. These are the skill sets that you wanted to get the most amount of endorsements for. And here is why. If you have 60 endorsements for project management, then that means 60 different people within your network endorsed you. That says something to a recruiter. It shows them just how active you are within your network. And so, by having those endorsements for those 10 key skill sets, you are going to statistically improve the chances that you show up in the search. Also, you are going to validate to the recruiter that you have the skills that you say you have, because you are getting the third party credibility. So make sure you take the time to edit the endorsements section and put the most important skill sets at the very top. Now we are not done yet because there is still some really valuable sections at the bottom of your LinkedIn profile. Of course, there are influencers. Who are you following? Recruiters may want to know what experts you are reading upon, what industry organizations, which organizations are involved in a particular skill set. Recruiters may want to understand how you are learning and what you are doing. And then lastly, and probably the most important, what companies are you following? This is where you actually create something called your interview bucket list. And this is all the companies that you would love to partner with someday. You should be following them and paying attention to them and seeing what they put in their feeds so that you can better understand them. I can tell you right now, a recruiter is going to see if you are following their company. They wanted to know just how serious you are about wanting to work for them. And if you show up in a recruiter's search and you have a great picture, a super headline, an incredible summary, very on point work history, you are following great influencers, you are part of a great groups, and you are following their company, then the chances are pretty good that the recruiter might check you out. Alright, so you optimized your LinkedIn profile and you got a recruiter to look at you. Guess what? Now they are going to want your resume. I know you are wondering, why they saw my LinkedIn profile? Isn't that enough? But it's not enough. They are going to need the resume not only to validate you, but they are going to have to be able to pass that on to the hiring manager. So let's start at the very top. When we think about a resume, it should mimic as much as your LinkedIn profile as possible. So please don't put a really long, winded objective statement or a summary, something like that. It's not going to get noticed. Also, be really careful with your language. Do not include a long objective or summary statement. People tend to get really subjective and flowery when they are writing their resume. Stick to the facts and list your key skill sets at the top of your resume in 2 columns. A great tip here is for you to take those 10 key skill sets in the endorsement section of your LinkedIn profile and let's turn it into 2 columns that you could put right at the top of your resume. The eye is going to be drawn immediately in and the recruiter is going to be able to validate your experience. Now, keeping with that idea of validating the experience, let's move on to the work history of your resume. It should be absolutely mirror what you have done on your LinkedIn profile. Please don't have different titles, different explanations of your work, what you did. That's very confusing. Recruiter is going to be handing that resume off to a hiring manager and they have probably already described you in some detail to that hiring manager. So they are going to want the consistency there. Now lastly, let's talk about the design of the resume because that's equally important. The recruiter is skimming your resume for about 6 seconds. Their eye is actually going to work in a Z pattern down that resume. And so we need to think about the formatting in terms of the font and the spacing and even the margins in order to create the right effect. When it comes to your margin, you should never be smaller than 0.8 inches in a margin. What we are trying to do here is create a white space effect so that the eye is drawn into the key points that you are putting on this resume. Make sure that the font size should not go less than 11 points. You shouldn't make it hard to read. A lot of people think that they should put everything that they have ever done and that they should really try to make themselves sound bigger and more important. They call that yelling and selling and it does not work. First of all, it overwhelms the recruiter. As they may not have the time, they will not read all the information. Moreover, if a critical skill or experience is missing, they may think you probably don't have it as you have put everything on the resume. The goal is to have just enough. Stick to the facts, create a lot of white space. Entice the recruiter to want to pick up the phone and contact you and find out more about you. In fact, if a recruiter calls you and says, "Hi, I found you on LinkedIn and I checked out your resume, but I need more information," then you have done this right. You gave them just enough to want to connect with you. Then this is going to be your opportunity to share your personality, share your experience. Really get them excited about the idea of putting you in front of the hiring manager. So remember, less is more when it comes to your resume. So what do you do if there is a company that you really wanted to work for and you wanted to be able to reach out and contact a recruiter at that company? We absolutely can connect to that recruiter, especially on a platform like LinkedIn. But before you do, you have to make sure that you have your job search tools ready to go. So please make sure that you have optimized that LinkedIn profile and the resume. Because if you connect with that recruiter and they ask for them, you wanted to be ready. Now reaching out to a recruiter is not hard. But there are 3 things that I want you to keep in mind so you can really optimize the chances that they will accept your connection request. The first thing I want you to do is follow the company on LinkedIn. The recruiter is able to see if you are following their company. So when they check out your profile, they are going to want to know that you are following them and you are a fan of that organization. The second thing I want you to do is to strategically find and reach out and try to connect with 5 people from that company. So why 5? Because chances are not every single one of them is going to accept a connection request. But we are trying to get at least a few people to connect with you. That's because when recruiters look you up in the recruiter platform, it actually shows them whom you are connected with at that company. It is kind of like a referral process. So imagine I am a recruiter and I see that you are following the company and you are connected to several employees. That is really going to increase the chances that I am going to want to reach out to you. And lastly and easily, the most important part is for you to customize your connection request when you reach out to the recruiter. What I want you to do is go to their profile, click on the connect button, and I want you to use the 300 characters that they give you to customize the connection request wisely. What do I want you to put in there? Well, I want you to think about the research you have done on the company and on the recruiter. I want you to personalize that connection request by sharing something about why you are impressed by the company. Why you care about what they do. What you admire about their product or service. Something to get that recruiter's attention. By doing this, you are not only going to increase the chances that recruiter checks your profile, you are hopefully going to inspire them to reach out and connect with you. So trust me, taking extra time to customize the connection request before you send it to the recruiter is really an important step in the process and can improve the chances that you get the results that you are looking for. So once we have made it through the interview, how can we follow up with the recruiter and keep the relationship going? That's very important part of the process. And I want you to pay close attention to how you follow up with the recruiter, because I have got to be honest, it could make or break the job offer. When it comes to the recruiter, keep in mind that while you have this job as your top priority, it is all you can think about, and every day that passes feels like a year when you haven't heard from them. In the recruiter's world, a day is like a minute. They have got lots of other jobs they are working on, lots of other candidates that they are recruiting. And so sometimes it takes a while to get back to you. And you really need to be patient and understanding. That doesn't mean that you can't take this into your own hands. In fact, I'm going to encourage you to follow up 1 week later. Wait 7 full days and then reach out to the recruiter by email. And what you want to do is send them a nice note, letting them know that you wanted to see if you can further your candidacy. I might suggest something like this. Dear recruiter, thank you so much for the opportunity to meet with you about the ABC position. I really enjoyed my time at the company. If there is anything else I can do to further my candidacy, please let me know. Sincerely yours. Also, if you wanted to add a little social currency and really impress the recruiter, I suggest that you research an article or a blog on LinkedIn or on their company website and find something that you talked about, something of interest, take that article and include it as PS. PS, I saw this article on LinkedIn and I thought of our conversation. This is going to show the recruiter that you're really thinking already like an employee of the company and you are really very collaborative to boot. A great way for you to stand out against the competition. Okay, you sent your follow-up email, which is fantastic. But now I want you to think about what to do next, and that is be patient. When you are too aggressive with the recruiter, it is going to make them uncomfortable. It is also going to make you look desperate, and this is going to make them not to want to follow up with you. So you are just going to have to be patient. The other thing, a little bonus tip I wanted to share with you is to never follow up with a recruiter on a Monday. That may sound crazy, but studies show the hardest day of the week is Monday. After coming back from the weekend, recruiters have a lot on their plate and they are trying to organize their week. And getting an email from you asking where you stand in the process might just hit them in the wrong way. So it is important to wait until at least Tuesday before you send out that email. And again, be super careful with the tone and the word of choice in the email, so that you look like you are being supportive and proactive. It is your job and your responsibility to be patient and to be professional. So really be careful. So I think we have learned that job search has changed dramatically over the last decade. And in order for you to really compete these days and stand out, you will have to be learning how to attract those recruiters. I really look forward to hearing your success stories and I hope you go out there and attract the recruiters that you want and deserve.